So tell us where are the launches? Besides, we've got Sydney, of course.
Yeah, look at me on an actual book tour. It's like I'm an actual author or something.
Yes.
I feel legit. We've been going around in a van with a pop-up art exhibition in it. So that's like We've got a series of easels, and we go to the launch events and we set up the easels and put the work by the artists that are in the book that we've borrowed and have a little art exhibition while we have the book launch. And we've done Tassie, and then we came over on the boat, which I'd never been on before.
Ah, yes.
And then we've done a bit of Canberra, and now here we are in Sydney, and I have a lot of lower back pain from sitting in a van.
And you're going next to Brisbane, I think, after this.
Yeah, so we're going up to Brisbane, then Melbourne, and
right.
This is good. This is my third sort of proper book, so I try to I understand the importance of promotion especially when you spend a solid minimum 2 years of your whole life making a thing. The idea of people not really knowing about it is just too ridiculous to contemplate. So I really do try and put myself out there. Yes,
it's impressive. It looks like 300 colour pages. Can you tell us about your book?
This book is it's a collaboration with the Burnie Arts Council, who are a sort of secretive, underground, edgy, elite posse of middle-aged women in Burnie who are into the arts. And they took me under their wing at a time that I returned to my hometown, which is sort of the last thing I thought I'd ever do. Mm-hmm. But there I was, sort of mooching around. And I guess...
Was that sort of around the lockdowns, around that period? Or?
Yeah, I actually went back to Burnie and left Melbourne pre-COVID hitting, and so it didn't feel like the world's greatest decision at the time, and then COVID happened, and it turned into the world's best decision. Ever since then, I've been doing this elongated spiritual reconnecting with my hometown while I'm there anyway, and helping my mum out. Trying to work out. The artist in me is always trying, no matter where you stick me, I'm always trying to generate some kind of, well, what can I make here? What can I do that would help this place? How could I work this situation into, generating something interesting?
And you've got some really interesting artists. Tell us about some of the artists you're featuring in your book.
Yeah, so there's turns out along my journey I reached out to other artists who were from Burnie, and I didn't even know half of them were from Burnie. I don't think half of them knew about me, and we've all sort of discovered each other. And for example, Craig Gleeson is a documentary maker. He's a bit like the Albie Mangles of Tasmania. He made a plastic ocean in 2018, perhaps led to single-use plastic bags being banned there for a while.
Yeah, it's impressive.
He's from Burnie. There's a band called Alpha Wolf who formed at Hellier College, where I went to school. They're a metalcore band who were just Grammy nominated for Best Boxed Set or Limited Release. And they're like kicking huge goals, and I wasn't aware of them either.
Yeah, I read they debuted at number 2 in the ARIA Australian album charts. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just chatting to this Sabian Lynch. He's about a 25-year-old dude from Burnie. And, for myself, I've got a, decent profile. I got played on Triple J lots as the bedroom philosopher. And I had a lot of hustle and a lot of drive. And now I'm just getting to chat to someone else from Burnie who's very driven, left for Melbourne. And along the way, just sort of ask the questions, what does Burnie mean to you? To these people, and sort of share almost the burden of being back, and sort of the psychological mind games of being back in a sort of conservative working class town that you might have a few issues with, and putting it out to other artists like how do you feel about Burnie these days, rather than just wandering around and it all being on me.
Right, well, I read that you've got digital artist Stuart Campbell, who made the digital art for Ready Player One. That's pretty impressive. And visual artist Michaela Gleave, who's got 220 million YouTube views. That's
Michaela Gleave lives in Sydney, so she's Sydney's own visual artist, contemporary artist, and she does amazing work. She made a new piece just for us, which is like printed on, it's a photograph of the industrial landscape of Burnie with some fluoro pink touches, and it's printed on like metal. Have you ever seen a photo on metallic?
Yes, it looks really lovely.
It looks unreal. So she made that just for this exhibition.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Chuffed to be showing that.
Well, talking about your artistic endeavours, do you want to play one of your tracks then?
Oh, sure. Well, at the launches, the theme is I'm playing some of the first songs I ever wrote when I was 18, because a lot of the book is me talking about my roots in Burnie.
And you've had 2 songs in Triple J's Hottest 100, so we're delighted you can play for us.
I guess this is just a simple song about my mum's Volkswagen Superbeetle, which she had. It was yellow. It looked like the Bumblebee Transformer. And at the grade 12 Heliot College music concert, this song went all right. It's called The Volks. You'll see her screaming down the highway, sounding like Gran's old mower. It's yellow, but my girl calls it orange. And in it you'll find my mother. Oh, it's a Volks. That's right, folks. It's a Volks. That's no hoax. It's a Volks. That's right, folks. It's a Volks. And that is no hoax. She'll be driving slow, so don't drive up her ass. Oh, Mama will be flipping like Shane Warne. So don't you try and overtake her, or you will hear an itty-bitty little horn. It's the Volks. That's right, folks. It's the Volks. That's no hoax. It's the Volks. That's right, folks. It's the Volks. And that is no hoax. That's just a load of bollocks. It's got a humpy little bonnet with the Vee-Dub logo beyond it. So let's write a song on it. They say she's not roadworthy. They want to take her from me, squirting oil and causing mayhem. Well, that's just my little Herbie. Oh, it's a Volks. That's right, folks. It's a Volks. That's no hoax. It's a Volks. That's right, folks. It's a Volks. And that is no hoax. It's Volks. That's right, folks. It's Volks. And that's no hoax. It's a Volks. 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 And that. No hoax.
Well, that was lovely. So the title is Volks, is it?
Yeah. It might have a title Vee-Dub.
Okay.
You know, like it's the sort of dub track just to wrong foot you.
Oh, right, okay. So we've got Justin Heazlewood here, and that's one of his tracks. He's also known as a bedroom philosopher. He's had 2 songs in Triple J's Hottest 100. So we're delighted he can play some of his compositions. That's great. And his new book, Dream Burnie, has just been released. And and you're listening to Eastside Radio 89.7 on the FM dial. It's Paula Towers with Caroline Saul for the Arts Thursday program. Now, Justin, your new book, how long did it take to put together? It's quite a time.
I went to town on it. I did a lot of. It's a sort of hybrid of art interview book and a memoir of my own, and a sort of history book at times, but not. Most history books seem to be 150 years ago, black and white photos. Not a lot of interest here from me personally. I'm interested in 1980s, 1990s history.
Mm-hmm. Right.
For example, a chap in Burnie invented a water clock, which was in the Plaza Arcade in 1986. It's not based on anything. He just came up with a design. It's a series of tubes that fill with water, and you read the time based on the hour tubes and the minute tubes and how many of them are filled up.
Oh, that's
and there's
delightful.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And so this story has been so almost dead and buried. I sort of accidentally came across it in an old newspaper, fanging through newspapers at the Burnie Library. And then I managed to track him down, did a big interview, went to the Burnie Museum, where the local newspaper have all their negatives for their photos in cold storage. And so I was tracking down every available photo of the water clock, of which there are so few that online, you park yourself on those Facebook sort of historical sites, and people, every now and then someone goes, "Does someone remember that water clock?" No one ever has photos. And so I've now presented this chapter in the book, which has 5 photos, a full interview with Chris King, and the complete story of the legend of Burnie's water clock.
Well, that's great. You've got local history archives that you've put together. It's
I just got really, I guess my last book, Get Up Mum, was sort of a childhood memoir, which I wanted it to be so authentic and realistic that if I said 12-year-old me was sitting down to watch TV and eat breakfast, I wanted to know what show I would have been watching. So I went into the library newspaper archives and would look up the TV guides from 1992 by going through the microfiche so that I could confirm I was watching Astro Boy. And if you want to know how deep I go, I was like, well, which episode of Astro Boy was it?
Oh, yeah.
And then I'd crunch the dates. And
he's the only boy I wanted to marry was Astro Boy. I loved Astro Boy.
He's a good dude. He's a good egg, Astro Boy. You can, he's a good role model for the kids, who want to be robots. So this book is a continuation of sort of dabbling in that, going into local historical history.
I relate to that kind of research, by the way, very much so.
Yeah. I even find eBay a really good tool. I was typing in vintage Burnie, and the amount of things people are selling, and then they take photos of those things. Sometimes they're selling like an obscure history book of a primary school, and there's all these photos, and I was literally finding out info off these photos of said things. When a town like Burnie is a little bit obscure, a little bit under the radar, you can't exactly go onto the internet or Trove or whatever.
State library.
You don't uncover huge. Yeah. And if you do get information, usually, like I said, it's 100 or 150 years old. It's like ye olde newspaper world. But for me, I'm interested in cool things that happened in the last 30 years that no one has really documented. Yeah. And I'm in a great position to do that because I'm back in Burnie. I'm a professional writer. I'm really engaged on this stuff. So this isn't just, I don't know, I want to make something really cool. The idea of a sort of psychedelic art book coming out of Burnie is just literally the last thing anyone is expecting or wanting.
It's good, the element of surprise. So it's good to have local, sort of modern history documented, or more recent history, that you say. So I'm interested how you got hold of Peter Garrett to discuss his track Burnie from, I understand, from Midnight Oil's 1981 album, Place Without a Postcard. Is that right?
Well, you send enough emails, you'll get somewhere. It was very nice to respond. It was just some written email questions. And the fact that Burnie has a song written about it called Burnie on the Midnight Oil album isn't great. That's just not something that people talk about all the time in Burnie. It sort of was off my radar a bit until only recently. And then it was perfect for this book because, I was just doing things like wandering on YouTube and seeing what sort of comments are under the song and just seeing what just testing the temperature of, like, what do people say about Burnie? I mean, it gets bagged out a lot. It's a bagged out town. Let's not beat around the bush.
I remember it from years ago.
It's got a horrendous sort of environmental pollution.
And what did Peter Garrett sort of, without giving too much away from your book, but his responses?
Oh, it's good. He cleared up there was a few, like, maybe, misnomers about certain things that this will clear up. And, he was just, I don't know, he used to come to the Menai Hotel in Burnie and do gigs and just observe the slightly fluoro colour of the water, with effluent being pumped in there by the pulp or the dioxide, and they just needed to. They were driven to respond. So Burnie's a bit. I think Burnie's a bit edgy. I don't think you could have a dream dream book about the other little towns surrounding it, or Devonport or Launceston. Like Burnie does have this, it's got a Mad Max vibe. It's got a real edge to it, and there's a sort of endless tension there from this extreme industry, and then this beautiful nature, and then there's like some nerds there, and there's some super bogans, and they're all trying to get around, and like we're all trying to get in and
get on with it.
We're in a very small, compact little town, and we're all trying to get by. And I just think, you know, it's almost like people from Burnie have these like survival stories, or like, oh, you're from Burnie, that's a badge of honour. If you mention it at a comedy gig, it'll probably get an automatic laugh or a jeer. Right. It's just got this sort of, you know, maybe I'm trying to use that to its advantage, and rather than take ownership of it and go, Burnie has a lot of faults, but it's sort of never boring, and maybe there's, you know, maybe it deserves a little bit of credit for that.
How was it named, Burnie?
I can actually tell you. I'll have a authority to speak about this. It was probably named after William Burnie, some old British, no doubt an awesome person, who never actually came to Australia.
Oh, really?
How do you like them apples? Yeah. So, and he just had naming rights. When you know what it could have been called? Emu Bay.
Oh, really? That would have been
because its animal insignia is the emu. And it was originally called Emu Bay, then changed to Burnie, and there's like a 2-person campaign to have it changed back to Emu Bay, which I'd be all for.
Yeah.
There's a lot of emus in this book, if there's any emu fans out there.
Right. So I was going to ask you,
a lot of emu content.
Who's your audience, do you think, for this book?
Definitely anyone who's... hang on, let me just read out the Myth Warhurst.
Oh, you want to read out a few
I'm
things?
not literally going to do that. But she does say anyone who grew up in a country town can totally relate to this book. So if you want to argue with Myth Warhurst, do that on your own time.
Can I ask you a quick question, Justin? Did the research throw up, I suppose, as you say, you're more interested in recent research, recent history, not, you know, further history, but any insights into the Indigenous history of Burnie?
Well, there's an Indigenous artist called Carly Gray, who I wasn't aware of, but my friend Dion, who's very into sport, said, you know, Carly did the Sir Doug Nicholls round Indigenous-themed boots for the captain of the Fremantle Dockers, Alex Pearce, who's actually Indigenous also, and from Ulverston, which is next to Burnie. So I'm really chuffed to be able to... Along the way, I quoted her interview with the local newspaper where she explained all kinds of great background information on Burnie. Its name is Palawa, I believe. It was a bit of a meeting place for tribes, and... I like that as a really authentic, sort of seamless way to segue into Indigenous history through her. And there's another, Tony Thorne created Big J and Little Cuz, the animated show for Indigenous kids. He's from Burnie, and he's the director of it. So again, we punch above our weight with these amazing people. And but I didn't really know about Tony Thorne. I didn't know he was from Burnie, and I'm an artist from Burnie. So this is what you're up against. So I'm creating this. The amount of times it says, "Oh, they're from regional Tasmania, northwest Tasmania." Like, the word Burnie doesn't get used a lot, if you know what I mean.
I know.
And I sort of think for a town of 20,000 people, it sort of matters.
It does. It's like a code word for that network. Is there a part you'd like to, an excerpt you'd like to read for us?
Oh, yeah, sure.
And tonight's the Sydney launch of Justin's book called Dream Burnie, and it's going to be at Newtown Bookstore, Better Read Than Dead, at 6:30 p.m. So if you want to meet him and chat to him about his book, he'll be there.
And can I say the cover of the book is so fantastic.
It's got this pinky colour. It's beautiful.
Come along and have a look at the cover.
Did you get him?
You don't need to take drugs before the gig, because the cover is very bright and psychedelic.
It is, and is that part of your artistic...
It's a collaboration with Kash Kahati, the graphic designer. Right. I sort of fed him quite a lot of iconic images from like the steam train we used to play on at the park, and the... this like Nissan Bluebird mascot that I saw once as a little kid and has intrigued me ever since. Someone posted a photo of him, so that's in the mix. So it's a menagerie, a tableau of images coming out of my head.
Yeah. It's really beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, so what are you going to read for us?
I'll give you a little bit of The intro.
Mm-hmm.
At night, Burnie was together in electric dreams. Driving in from Wynyard or Penguin, the beacon of hope came in the form of a blue dot, the glowing jewel in the crown of View Road. As the car began twisting up the dark runway, a majestic entity cast a soft neon glow through the trees. The Blue Cross. My eyes touched base. Hope reset for another week. Blue Cross House was once a priest's accommodation. Somewhere in that premises there must have been a switch to activate its bold insignia. Something like the panel on the gold condor on Mysterious Cities of Gold. The Dream Burnie signal. Our version of the Batman halo. Everything will be okay, little boy. Somehow, somewhere. Burnie, we care. As a kid, I kept a time capsule in the clouds. Driving home from Wynyard, I was dream-rich and cosy in the cockpit of childhood, eyes filling up on the sunset apricot, the aqua-violet watermark of Table Cape. I studied the exhibition by Mother Nature. The sea was a canvas of pastels, where the rain danced and no two greys were ever the same. Burnie's city limits slipped into infinity. Hobart had its mount, Launceston a river, but we have the horizon. A cool constant through line connecting us all. I ran my eyes along it, like a butcher sharpening its knife.